Have you ever watched some tech-related video and somebody opens their shell and it looks like very cool and futuristic? Well, they're probably first of all using Z shell and second of all using PowerLevel10k. This is a theme that you have probably seen a lot of times. So I'm gonna teach you how to install it, but most importantly, how to configure it to your liking. First of all, you go to the page, which I'm going to link in the description. So let's look how we can actually install it. First of all, you should recommend, no, you shouldn't recommend, you should install the recommended font because this version depends on Unicode to build how it looks. So you see this like weird triangle and other different symbols. Well, it depends on Unicode first of all, and second of all on a nerd font. A nerd font is a patched font that supports those characters. So you can just click on this and install the font that supports that. Or if you know other nerd fonts or overall how this works, you can install your own. Then install PowerLevel10k itself. And everything else I'm going to show you. I recommend manual. If you have OhmyZSH installed, you could do this, but I remember having some trouble, surprisingly, running this code while this one just straight up worked without any issues. So you can use manual, and it doesn't depend on anything that you see here. So, okay, you installed it, then after you install, you do Z shell to reload your shell, and let's clear all of that. Then you type in p10k configure. And if this command doesn't do anything, try rebooting the system or something of that nature. Sometimes it takes a surprising amount of like rebooting stuff. But once you run this, you can actually decide. Just answer the question that you see here. So yes, 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 and if for you those characters didn't show up, that means something is up with your font. So you would have to change the font in your terminal emulator. So it should be here, and you pick the correct font. Now, you probably are not using Windows if you're watching a Linux related thing, but that's how you do it on Windows terminal. But you probably know how to change your font in the terminal emulator that you're using. Then once again, yes, and here is where you decide the actual font. So first of all, Lean uses the 256 color scheme. Pure uses the 16 color scheme. So this depends on your terminal emulator supporting those 256 colors. If it doesn't, you can pick this. Or the obvious choice of the cool looking one. However, later in the video, I'm going to explain why I don't use it. And this one I haven't tried, I guess, is just less colors or something of that nature. So I'm going to pick rainbow so you can see how it looks. Then Unicode, what I was just talking about. Here you can see symbols that form forms, I guess. So it looks cooler, much cooler than this. But once again, it should depend on the nerd font that you installed. So if you, for some reason, don't want to do that or can't because of permissions, you can choose the second one. I'm going to pick the first one, though. Then you can decide whether it shows you the time. I personally don't like it. So, no. You can even choose the separators. I'm going to pick the first one. I skipped something. Oh, well. But it's probably something along these lines as well. You can pick the tail. I like mine flat. 2 lines or 1 line. I like 2. You can even pick the connector. I don't like it. Oh, I guess I chose this thing. I didn't intend to do that, but oh well. Then you can pick where these things appear. I personally use no frame, but let's pick full for this time. And also the lightness of it. Let's pick the lightest. Sparse. You can pick icons. I personally don't see why I would want to, but maybe you do. And you can decide whether you want words or not. Now, first time I saw this, I didn't understand what this meant. Essentially, the current command that you're executing, or rather typing in, will be under this like cool looking prompt. But the previous commands that you executed won't have that prompt. But if you select no, then every one of your previous commands will also have the cool prompt. That's the difference. I'm going to pick no so you can see how that works. Still not sure what it's asking me here, because no matter what I pick, nothing happens. So I'm going to pick off and then yes. And you can see the cool prompt now. Let's do something like get status. And as you can see, the cool prompt still stayed on the previous command. I might even turn back to having that, but yeah. So I actually had a different setup, so let me git reset hard on head, and that should bring me back to my actual settings, and here we are. Okay, so let's go to the file, which I haven't yet explained where it is. So let's go to the home directory, ls, or rather la. You can see that the file is here called .p10k.zsh. It's made automatically once you go through this p10k configure thing, and here it is. It already has all of the options that you might need or not. Some of them are disabled, some of them are enabled even though you want to. So you would have to change this file, and I am currently in this file. First of all, you can pick colors for pretty much everything that you look at, but sometimes it's difficult to figure out what it even is. So to not guess the numbers, because let's have a look at something completely random, something that has a color. Anytime now, here it is. So ruler foreground, whatever that means, it has a number here. Well, this is actually the color that you set for this thing, whatever it is. Once again, I'm not sure. And all the colors that you set are either words, for example, red, I think would work, or a number in the 255 scale. So from 0 to 255. But to confirm that information, let's actually uncomment this line, which is also there by default in your p10k.zsh. So let's reload the shell, and here we have a nice color thing for every single color that you can access. So you can use this to look at what number is what color and how it will look like. So the first 16, including the 0th color, is the one that you have as your theme. If we go and have a look at my color scheme, here it is. You can see the colors that are there by default. And everything else is the 256 color scheme. So what I used to do, I just used to like increment the number for the color, reload my shell, and look how it now looks. But turns out this has been thought out for me. I can just look at this and pick a color that I want for every single thing that I want to change the color of. Great, so you can use this, but I'm going to remove it because I don't need it. So a couple of things that are important to know because of them being useful. First of all, whenever you want to change something, It's not gonna do you any good usually, but sometimes it will. Just search for it. For example, directory. Say you want to change, it's not exactly obvious. Let's go to something longer. So say I want to change the color of this directory that I'm currently in. Well, I would search for directory and, oh, here it is. I can change the color now. So if I change this to say 100 and Z shell, now it's a different color. But what is happening here? Why isn't it all that color? Because of another thing called truncate to unique. So if I make my terminal smaller, PowerLevel10k will automatically shorten a part of my directory to unique. Essentially, if I type in, oh, not here, let's go here, mnt, then C, then program, and press tab, I am guaranteed that it will only be one thing. So truncate to unique means exactly that. If you type that in as part of your command to mean that path, it will for sure expand into the correct thing. So it does that automatically when it doesn't have enough space for it. But if we do, it doesn't do that. So why does this still have a different color? Because of a concept called anchors. So anchors in your current directory are directory names that will never be shortened, no matter what. And that's why they are a different color. I personally could not care less about that. Not sure how that information is useful at all. So that's why my prompt looks all the same. So let's reload that and do the magic thing again. However, the shortened part of my directory is still a different color because I think that can potentially be useful. So let me show you how to actually change every single thing of that. First of all, truncate to unique, the behavior that I just explained, and the comments also explain that. If you instead want to display only one directory, you could say truncate to last. Let's reload the shell, and now it only shows me the directory I'm actually in. And then somewhere close here, or not, let's do a mark and directory. Sure, let's find it like this. Here it is. PowerLevel9k shortened directory length. If I change this to 3 and reload my shell, it will show the last 3 directories. And now the anchors and the shorteners, I think, don't matter anymore, but you'll have to find that out by yourself. So I actually like having the full path, so I'm gonna undo to truncate to unique. Now, coming back to the different colorings. First of all, I mentioned that if a path, if some directory is shortened, it's a different color. This is the setting for you to change. And this is the color for the anchors. So part of your directory that will never change. And you can display them in bold, I guess. Great. So we can change the color of our directory. Amazing. Another thing that is not there by default, and let's actually go somewhere that has changes so we can see even more stuff. I guess it doesn't. Let's add like a space here, and here it is. So by default, this is green, and this I think is also green, but a different green. I don't quite remember, but it's going to look different for you. And let's try to find how to recolor that. So it should be get status somewhere here. Here it is. this is actually something that I found myself like difficult to recolor because I couldn't find where it is, but here it is. These are the color codes for all the Git stuff that you see. So clean is your branch name, and if you have commits that you haven't yet pushed, it will show you more than, and then the number of the commits that you haven't yet pushed. Or if you're behind your remote, it will do less than, and then the number of the commits you're under. This means modified files. So modified, yeah, or changed. And that is modified. And then if we touch a file, we also have this thing, which means untracked files, and that is untracked. So to change the color, you just change the number here. Don't touch the %, don't touch the F, just change the number. And then conflicted is, I guess, when you have merge errors. I haven't changed this color yet because I didn't have any situation to actually test it. But yeah, that's how you change the Git thing. Now, what if you don't want the Git thing? Well, first of all, in the prompt that I configured just recently, when I showed you the P10k configure thing, the time was on the right, and there wasn't a setting in the configurator to move it to the left. I found it very annoying, so I moved it to the left. How do I do that? Well, here we have PowerLevel10k left prompt elements, so elements that are in the left part of our prompt. And then we have the ones that are on the right. So it was on the right, specifically command execution time and status, actually. So they were somewhere here. I just took them and moved them here. That's it. So you just take the line that you want to move to a different prompt and move it where you want it to be. You can even move, say, git status to the right prompt, and wait, that's not what I wanted. VCS. Cool. So let's try this out. I've never tried, and it does indeed work. It's actually kind of cool. Let's do some command to see where the time appears, and yeah, it appears where you would expect it would. I'll still keep it the way it used to be for me, because I like it that way more, but as you can see, you can move around stuff very easily. And the comments explain stuff pretty well, so you won't have an issue, I'm pretty sure. So that's how you can move stuff around. Now, I showed you how to change the directory color, the git status color. Let's see execution. Here it is, command execution time. You just saw that I did an echo high, and it still displayed the time. This is not default behavior. First of all, by default, it shows you only the full amount of seconds. So the amount of full seconds, rather, that the command took. And it only does that if it at least took 3 seconds. This makes no sense for me. Like, if it can show me the execution time, it might as well be as precise as possible. And I guess it's because it's not exactly the same time that the command takes to execute, but still, like, why so imprecise? And why do you not care if it's under 3 seconds? I don't know, I feel like this is cool information to have. And here's how you configure it. First of all, show duration of the last command if it takes at least this many seconds. This by default is 3. I changed it to 0. So if it's at least 0 seconds, which it always will be, then show the amount of time that it took. Then this by default is 0, meaning, well, 0 means round to seconds. It explains it in the comment. And it often does in this file. Many things are just explained right away. So I changed it to 3, so it showed up to milliseconds. I've changed it to 6, and I think even 8, and it still like showed numbers. It didn't trail off with zeros, so it's, I think, surprisingly precise, which is not what I expected from a shell, but it is what it is, I guess. But every command takes varying amount of time anyway, so more than 3 I think is unnecessary. And then the color of this thing itself, I made it to a simple gray, which is 102. And once again, you can use the trick I showed you at the start to get the list of all colors. Maybe you want to have it, I don't know, red, yellow, green, whatever, up to you. And then if it took like days, hours, minutes, seconds, so on, you can specify the time format. Not sure how that time format exactly works, so you can use ChatGPT to ask it that question about PowerLevel10k. Okay, great. Now you can see that I have this here and in the past. So you can change this as well. By default, it's just one single, what is it called? Triangle bracket? I'm not sure. Once again, like, it's strange that I did it this way, but I showed you how to configure the cool Unicode looking one and showing you how to configure the supposedly not cool looking one. But everything that I showed you already applies to that one as well. It's just that you might have some other things to configure, and once again, you can just look through, read the comments, you'll find your way, or Google. So right now I'm showing you the most, I think, important ones, and those that I found useful myself, because I didn't have this information, I figured it out. So I hope it's going to be useful to you as well. Now, what is it called? Prompt character, sure. This is the line where you change it. And if you also use Vim mode in your shell, and I do, you can also change it depending on whether you're in normal mode or in insert mode. So if I press escape, currently I am in normal mode and the prompt character changes to this one. Once again, this is not the default. This is what I set myself, and 3 characters might seem a bit ridiculous for quite some people, but I liked it, so here it is. And the same thing here. You can even change the prompt character for when you're in visual mode and overtype mode, which I have yet to use. I feel like. And even in normal Vim, like, I am aware that it exists, I just don't find it very useful. Like, I would just, maybe I should use it more. I just don't find a reason to. Well, then the actual color of the thing. I wanted to have it pink as well, so it's 218, but you can actually make it different colors depending on whether the last command succeeded or failed. So let's change this to 100 and this to 200, I guess. So, okay, let's reload the shell. This probably means that it was successful. So let's type in false. This means that it is the last command failed, supposedly. And this thing I'll cover a bit later. So the reason why I don't have different colors depending on the state is because let's execute another command. Why is this still false? Why is this still, oh, the last command failed? Does it matter anymore? why does a command that did not fail still have the color of a failed command? Well, because the last command failed. I find this confusing and not very useful, especially considering that I still get this thing here. So I just change it to be one color, which is pink, and I like how it looks more anyway. Now, the thing that I just showed you, which shows you the error code, you can also change that. So let's go to error, I think, and find it. Once I do, this file has a lot of stuff. Okay, so yeah, great, we found it. So first of all, I'm not sure how to separate those because there are multiple settings that look pretty much the same but are somehow different. So you can read the comments and the names of the variables themselves to figure out which one you actually want to change, but I just set them all to the same color. So let's do an error. Now we have error and then the error code. So if you type in false, this is actually a command, I think. Yeah, it should be a command, which fails with the error code of 1. So let's do what? I wonder what will fail in Linux. Just yesterday, when I was configuring all of this stuff, I tried to make an error and couldn't because everything was a command supposedly. Let's do ER. Cool, so command not found has the error code of 127. So this thing is pretty useful, and I think by default it's not even there. So this is false by default because, well, that makes sense. It shouldn't be true to specify, oh, every single command that you execute is correct. But let's just try it out. Cool, okay. Okay, again, I don't need it to repeat it every single time. If it didn't error out, that means it's okay. But if it did give an error, well, I'd rather see the error. So that's why I have this as the default false. But everything else here is actually kind of useful. So true, by default, I think it's false. And the other things here, essentially, all of those relate to the error code that you see if your command failed. And all of them have this color, and you can change it. Which one is exactly which one? I guess you'll figure out for yourself because I'm not quite sure myself. So I changed it all to yellow because of how it works with my overall color scheme that I worked on here. Okay, and another thing, which is once again pretty similar but somewhat different. So what I would recommend personally is just changing them all to the same color and enabling them all, and here you go. So this should be pretty much everything out of the most important stuff that you might want to change yourself. All of the dot files that I have are public, and I leave a link to in the description to all of those, so you can just grab my thing if you want to. If you like my setup and you want to steal it, well, you can. I also have this file in the same repository which explains some things. I will probably move it here, so keep a lookout for that, I guess. It explains basically the most useful things that you might want to change to something else, because I'm gonna be honest, PowerLevel10k is not very good at naming things, or at least naming things in a very basic way where a beginner could think of that. And then you're on some fifth Stack Overflow thread trying to figure out what you actually are trying to change, and it's surprisingly not that helpful. So yeah, keep in mind though that I'm a human and I like changing things. So the settings that you see here in this video, I might be already using something a bit different. So if you grab my settings and they're not what they look like here, sorry, I guess. You already saw all of the useful settings that I have here anyway, so here you go. Now, to cover the point that I was mentioning at the start of the video. The reason why I don't use the Unicode good looking version, and I used to actually, let's create multiple terminals that all split again and again and again. Let's open some huge directory. Now this is ridiculous and wouldn't really be used, but with the plain ASCII version, I think that's how you pronounce ASCII. ASCII? I'm somewhere in between in pronouncing that. What about you? Leave a comment. So, no matter what, this is not particularly nice to look at, I don't think, but still, everything wraps correctly and in a very, like, reasonable way. But if you're using the Unicode version, then the Unicode symbols that are used to form the actual shapes are also wrapped like that, and it just ends up looking goofy, very goofy. And especially if you also have the connecting lines between your left prompt and your right prompt, those get wrapped as well, and it becomes a huge clusterfuck. And well, yes, the right prompt is also a mess, which wraps in an annoying way, where having multiple panes at a time is just way too annoying to be worth it. But if you use the ASCII version, then you can have this and still have it readable. Okay, so I've been explaining the ASCII version this entire video, so I might as well show you how to configure it the way I actually do, not necessarily the cool popular one. So let's do P10k configure once again, and I'm going to show you which one I actually use. So once again, yes, 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 yes. Then I use lean. Am I Fat Nick or something? I use ASCII. That's such a difficult word to pronounce correctly. It always sounds goofy. Then 256 colors. Then I don't have time, but you can if you want to. And you would then have to move it from here to here. Well, you wouldn't have to, but I would recommend doing that. I wonder where it actually is, because even if something you said no to, it's still probably in the config file, just disabled with a comment. So it should be, oh, here it is, current time. So you can just uncomment it, and here you go. Okay, coming back. I reply with no, 2 lines, disconnected, sparse, concise, right? Yes, concise. Then yes, I always fuck up on that part. And then off once again. And since I don't want to change anything, I'll just quit and do nothing. Yeah, and that's how you get my prompt, along with the settings that I showed you in this video. And if that was useful to you, press a like, type some comment, maybe have a question or suggestion. Definitely subscribe so you don't miss my content, but most importantly, stay fresh, cheese bags, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye!